Migration has been a huge flashpoint. More people were deported under my husband and Barack Obama without killing American citizens and without putting children into detention camps than were in the first Trump term or this first year of Trump's second term. Migration. It went too far. It's been disruptive and destabilizing, and it needs to be fixed in a humane way with secure borders that don't torture and kill people. The Trump administration's position toward Ukraine is disgraceful. I think the effort to force Ukraine into a surrender deal with Putin is shameful. The effort that Putin and Trump are making to profit off the misery and death of the Ukrainian people is a historic error. Trump either doesn't understand or could care less about that suffering. He has betrayed the West. He's betrayed human values. He's betrayed the NATO Charter, the Atlantic Charter, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Let me add my version of history to the revisionism that I hear in not just this conversation, but so many other places. It is, for me, a blessing that freedom was expanded to include, in the United States, for example, the right of black people to be treated at least better than they had been for 400 or so years. It was a culmination of freedom for women to be given their rights much more fully than they had been. It was, I think, a dramatic recognition of human dignity for gay people to be able to be treated without fear and even marry, which to me is creating a family. So, you know, I understand conservative impulses. I understand we are fighting an ideological battle that is as old as time. There are those of us who are more comfortable in a more open, tolerant world. And there are those who have their concerns about it because they worry about the impact on existing institutions like the family, community, and others. So this really, yes, migration has been a huge flashpoint. More people were deported under my husband and Barack Obama without killing American citizens and without putting children into detention camps than were in the first Trump term or this first year of Trump's second term. So I think it's important to look at the facts, because very often the ideological impulse to try to protect the status quo or return making America great again in some nostalgic past that existed for white men and capitalist enterprise was not exactly open and welcoming to people who look like me and a lot of other people who are part of our national fabric. I have no argument with the necessity of trying to figure out how do we form families. I'm very proud of my family. I'm proud of my 3 grandchildren. I am proud to be part of that tradition. That doesn't mean everybody has to be. That doesn't mean everyone who doesn't have children is somehow an illegitimate human being. So how do we make the case in a positive way, not a bullying and very shameful way? So this debate that's going on is driven by an effort to control people, to control who we are, how we look, who we love, and I think we need to call it for what it is.
Secretary Clinton.
There is a legitimate reason to have a debate about things like migration. It went too far, it's been disruptive and destabilizing, and it needs to be fixed in a humane way with secure borders that don't torture and kill people, and how we're going to have a strong family structure, because it is at the base of civilization.
Secretary Clinton, may I say thank you for that. And you got.
You really mean that?
Yes, I do. I do, and you got several rounds of applause there. But I'm really interested in the line that our discussion is having already, which is a battle within the West between conservatism and liberalism. But I don't think we would be having this discussion at all if it weren't for some of the positions the US administration has taken. And let me take one of them, which is Ukraine, which is obviously at the center of the Munich discussions of the past couple of years. And the line that the Trump administration has taken in trying to resolve the Ukraine conflict following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, its apparent thrust to accept Russia's territorial encroachment on Ukraine. And to you, I absolutely, I understand, and we've had various versions of it already, your characterization of a clash between conservative and liberal values being, at the heart of what's going on in the West. But in this particular one, a security issue, one that involves international law, whether countries still respect those international laws laid down after the Second World War, do you think that that brings a new rift within the West? Ukraine, the US's position. Are you talking to me? Yes, I am.
I think that the Trump administration's position toward Ukraine is disgraceful. I think the effort to force Ukraine into a surrender deal with Putin is shameful. I think the effort that Putin and Trump are making to profit off the misery and death of the Ukrainian people is a historic error and corrupt to the nth degree. And so I believe Ukraine is fighting for our democracy and our values of freedom and civilization on the front lines, losing thousands of people and having their country destroyed by one man's mania to control them. And I think Trump either doesn't understand or could care less about that suffering. So that's what I think.
And so do you think he has destroyed the West, to go to our title?
He has betrayed the West. He's betrayed human values. He's betrayed the NATO Charter, the Atlantic Charter, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. A lot of what has been done before to try to make sense of how difficult it is to restrain people who want unaccountable power. And none of us in this room, including all of us on this panel, would choose to live under a regime that was so unaccountable that it could act with impunity the way that Putin does, except that's who Trump is modeling himself
I don't think we would be having this debate under that kind of regime, for sure.
And we've been talking about Western values throughout the conference, and Madam Secretary, I'd like to ask you, I'm the mother of a daughter, and it absolutely horrifies me to see what the Epstein files have brought out. And I wanted to ask you, what does it say about Western values when Western leaders have perpetuated and participated in these horrific abuses of minors and girls?
Thank you very much. We have gone everywhere from New Start to Epstein. Via some fundamental questions of the critique of rules-based order from the left, of civilization versus values, of conservatism versus liberalism in the US, and other things. Secretary Clinton, as there are a couple directly to you, let me start with you, and then everyone else gets about a minute, and you get a minute and a tiny bit.
Yeah, I heard three in particular. To the last question, it's horrifying, and we're hoping that there will be continued release every day that passes. That doesn't mean, as our news commentators say every day in the United States, it's because someone's name is there, they committed a crime. But I think there's a lot of very troubling and really horrific information coming out. Today, came out that Steve Bannon was trying to get Jeffrey Epstein to help him overthrow Pope Francis. I guess that was part of the civilizational
true conservatism.
True conservatism. So it is something that needs to be totally transparent. I've called for many, many years for everything to be put out there so people can not only see what is in them, but also, if appropriate, hold people accountable. We'll see what happens. On the New START treaty, which we were, the foreign minister and I were talking about this just backstage. We actually signed, President Obama signed the New START treaty in Prague. And it was, one in a series of efforts to restrain the proliferation of nuclear weapons, to control the U.S. and Russian arsenals. And I think it's a very big mistake for it to have been allowed to expire. I know that there was an offer, apparently, from the Russians to extend it a year, during which there could be some negotiations. The Trump administration refused that. And their response was that they wanted to try to get China and other nuclear weapons countries into a regime, which more power to them if they could ever manage that and if it could be achieved. But I am very worried because Trump also, he tweets, or I guess he X's or whatever he does on social media late at night, and one of his recent ones was to resume nuclear testing, underground nuclear testing, and I think that would be a terrible development. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen, and I'm hoping that there can be some efforts to reinstate some kind of nuclear arms agreements. With respect to this question, if you think about the 13 colonies, that was a creed. It was an idea. It was a philosophy. It did not include the entire continental United States, let alone Alaska and Hawaii. It was based on the founders' deep understanding of human nature, of philosophy, of what we might call liberal thought, as they created a new country. And, when I hear President or Vice President Vance say things like that about how, it's a nation, it's blood and soil, and all the ways that he talks about it, I think to myself, I never knew he was such a firm advocate for Native Americans, because the idea that you would have an approach toward the United States that ripped away our founding documents, our founding philosophies, is so contrary to the way I understand American history. So I think that it's not only wrong historically, it is a political device that I think is very dangerous and should be rejected whole cloth.